To do good is noble. To tell others to do good is even nobler, and much less trouble. Siamorphe is the goddess of nobility, of responsibility, and of the divine right to rule. She is also known as the divine right. Her portfolio is the power of rulership as bestowed by the gods and passed down through generations. Siamorphe appears as an older noblewoman whose hair and steely eyes are flecked with grey and carry the appearance of a well-kept individual of sizable means and considerable abilities. Her royal attire prominently features purple, the colour of nobility, and she carries as badges of her office a silver chalice, an adamantine sceptre, and a tiara formed from a single diamond. Though her appearance will change as her power is passed down to a new incarnation. You see, Siamorphe is merely the vessel to contain a greater power, known as the divine right. Throughout the 13th and the 14th centuries, this celestial position was held by Lady Siamorphe of Waterdeep, who was chosen by the divine right in the year 1256 as a worthy paragon of noble virtues, following her death in a riot. Thus, she replaced the previous incarnation, being a nobleman of Baldur's Gate who had strayed from the virtues extolled by the divine right. Generally speaking, the process for godly succession involves a new paragon being chosen as the former vessel is dying, which typically favors the former being's mortal heir. But in a pinch, any noble-born and worthy individual may suffice. The lack of clear rules for lineage for this divine position speaks to a greater will or consciousness at play, implying that the being known as the divine right and the being known as Siamorphe each possess their own wills and their own objectives, with the former being weighing and judging worthiness as it relates to the material needs of the current age, as well as acting as a kind of a system of checks and balances to prevent the latter being from using the near immortality of godhood to rule in perpetuity. Siamorphe is unique among deities in that she does not seem to build particularly strong interpersonal relationships with other gods. This may be a consequence of her relatively short lifespan, or perhaps it is a self-imposed exile from close companionship in a kind of an ascetic devotion to serving humanity. Though it should be noted that she is not without enemies, such as Bane, the god of tyranny, Cyric, the god of lies, and Gargoth, the god of corruption. Indeed, she opposes all who typify the misuse of power. Siamorphe dwells within the House of the Triad, a shining land of lawful virtue, within the plain of Mount Celestia. There, her worshippers find a rightful resting place among the grandest of all celestials, as well as the opportunity to rub shoulders with such important deities as Torm, the god of duty, Tyr, the god of justice, Helm, the god of protection, and Ilmatar, the god of easing suffering. Siamorphe is a demigod, and her lawful neutral alignment represents a subservience to the greater good. Her clerics tend to utilize the domains of order and of knowledge, and she grants them the power to turn and to destroy undead. Her chosen weapon is the adamantine rod that serves as a badge of her office, which is known as Noble Might, and whom her divine casters imitate by training in the martial use of officious-looking scepters, which follow the rules for a mace. Her holy time is noon, and her casters pray for spells when the chalice of Siamorphe, being the sun, reaches its zenith. Her worshippers are collectively known as heirs of Siamorphe, and many of their traditions and worships have now been lost to time as the divine right has passed on from one vessel to another. Nonetheless, many heirs are prone to hiring adventuring parties to explore ruined castles and seek out the long-dead spirits of ancestors to revive said traditions. Many of the surviving liturgies of Siamorphe involve a preoccupation with proper names, long titles, and rites to accompany the hours of the day, ranging from specific styles of dress to the structured ordering of meals. But many of her ceremonies are less formal as well, taking the form of informal round-table discussions concerning the proper administration to the common masses. With the name of Siamorphe, the divine right invoked at the outset and at the closing of such occasions. Her holy festival is an absurdist charivari known as the divine pageantry, which is characterized by a satirical inversion of the social order. Occurring within summer, the precise date of the divine pageantry is different every year, sometimes chosen seemingly without rhyme nor reason. Thereupon, nobles will dress in outrageously outdated clothes, grotesque commedia dell'arte masks, and engage in comic imitations of court practices, such as bowing excessively after every other word and referring to one another through increasingly long and convoluted titles, as well as the performance of scathing farces, such as crowning a beggar as a king for a day, or a child as the head of the church. This festival is as much a chance for the elite to let slip their masks as it is to honor the common man. And it is common practice to shower the poor with gifts and coins, and to honor servants highly at feasts. Commoners, in turn, mark the festival with bawdy rough song, gathering below the windows of greedy landlords, miserly merchants, and cruel masters to viciously lambast them with mocking lyrics and lewd parody. In Waterdeep, the whole festival culminates in a bacchanalian parade through the city streets, occupying main roads and grinding the whole city to a halt. Her clergy are known as scions of Siamorphe, and many among the priesthood trace their lineage back to different avatars of the divine right, meaning that, at least in theory, they may one day ascend to godhood themselves, should they be found worthy. They dress according to whatever is the contemporary noble fashion, topped by a circlet with a golden sun upon their brow. The ranks of the scions also contain many second and third-born noble sons and daughters who have been denied the chance to inherit. The scions of Siamorphe are highly sought after by noble lords and ladies for their guidance in wise rulership. Thus they often serve greater nobles as personal priests, as tutors to their children, and as governors over their holdings, as well as overseeing rich court ceremonies. To this effect, the Church of the Divine Right has grown extraordinarily wealthy, with the ceremonial baptism of a noble heir overseen by a senior scion often costing as much as 10,000 gold pieces. The worship of Siamorphe is relatively uncommon, as it typically appeals only to the elite few. Therefore, most of her temples amount to little more than family shrines, most commonly found within Waterdeep and, more recently, within Tethea. Her solitary great house of worship is known as the Chapel and Chalice of the Divine Right, within the Osumbar family villa in Waterdeep, which marks the final destination of the parade of the divine pageantry. Formal positions in Siamorphe's church are bestowed by the social status of the individual, according to a complex system of peerage. For example, a generic noble-born follower of Siamorphe would be known as Lord Heir or Lady Heir, while a priest of the same strata would be known as Lord Scion or Lady Scion. And both followers and priests would be addressed as my lord or my lady. Above them, barons and baronesses are typically landed nobles who are addressed as my lord or as my lady as well, as are viscounts and viscountesses who often hold formal administrative positions for more powerful lords. And above them are counts, who are sometimes called earls, and countesses, who are addressed as Your Excellence, or as Lord or as Lady. While those who hold lands at the outer reaches of the kingdom are given the extra honor of being known as Marquis or Marquess, or in the feminine, Marchioness, who are addressed as Lord or as Lady. While dukes and duchesses control large and frequently sovereign territories and often powerful armies, and they are addressed as Your Grace, or simply as Duke or Duchess. And beyond this point, the system of peerage becomes even more complicated. For you see, while a prince or a princess is colloquially understood to mean the child of a king, formally it refers to one who rules their lands free of outside influence, and therefore a king. Many dukes and even some marquesses are technically princes. And yet, in the system of peerage, a prince specifically refers to one below a king and above a duke or a marquess. Both princes and princesses are addressed as Your Highness when first speaking in their presence, and as Sir or Ma'am thereafter. And above them, some extraordinarily powerful dukes who are effectively kings in all but name. They are granted the title of Grand Duke or Archduke, and they are addressed for the first time as Your Serene Grace, and thereafter as Your Grace. While kings and queens are those who rule through the fealty bestowed to them by other nobles, and they are addressed as Your Majesty, while members of their direct family are addressed as Royal Highness. And above them, emperors and empresses are those to whom even kings and queens swear fealty, and they are also addressed as Your Majesty, but their direct family are addressed as Imperial Highness. Finally, and controversially, at the bottom of the pyramid is a recent addition to the peerage. A baronet or a baronetess is simply anyone with the financial means to purchase the title, and are addressed as Sir or as Dame, sometimes including their first name, if indeed we are to even recognize them at all. The Scions of Siamorphe are also served by a formal knightly order, known as the Order of the Silver Chalice, largely comprised of third or later born noble sons, daughters, and hangers-on who wish to be elevated to nobility. The Order of the Silver Chalice are sworn to seek out the lost traditions of the divine right, and to locate lost and disenfranchised members of disgraced and forgotten noble lineages who, given the chance, would govern with the best interests of the plebeian class at heart, and then to restore them to their rightful power. In my world, the gods remain silent, and therefore the present avatar of the divine right cannot be confirmed, and yet kings and lords remain a tangible link to divinity in a literal sense. For the heads of noble families possess within their very bloodlines extraordinary magical powers that bind the land to their blood and exert power over their subjects, and even control the forces of nature within their domains. These powers are passed down to rightful or to chosen heirs, or are sometimes usurped and subsumed, as one house may claim the lands and the portfolios of their defeated rivals. It is as if the divine right chose, or had done unto them, a fracturing of their authority, moving from the monarchic rule of Siamorphe to the oligarchic rule of a select few. Supporting this hypothesis, one might well observe that the late Empress Alexandra was said to be drafting a set of wide-ranging laws that passed rulership of the land to those who worked the land and cared for it, before her untimely death. And while this so-called Keeper's Law died with her, it raises a thought, a possibility, that if kings and lords are endowed with the same divine right that in turn granted them the right to rule, then perhaps through some revolution, revival, or through the stroke of a pen, That same power might one day be passed down again to forge a world where the common man could live on par with nobility and be instilled with the essence of gods. Then truly the meek shall inherit the earth. The philosophies passed down by the divine right extol the following edicts. Nobles who make themselves fit for the responsibilities of their station are the rightful, God-given rulers of the vast bulk of humanity. Such lords and ladies, therefore, have a responsibility to rule in a manner best serving those beneath them, even when their duties come into conflict with their own desires. The virtues of wisdom and charisma that create a great leader are passed down through lineages. For the fortunes that allow the leisure time necessary to be educated in the skills of great leadership can only come from the lines of leaders. Strong rules and regulations for the peaceful inheritance of lands and titles to rightful heirs negate the violence and the power struggles that would otherwise occur between rival claimants. And finally, a strong, noble class that genuinely cares for their subjects and looks after their best interests is the best form of government there is. Or, at least, the best we have tried so far.